Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And once again, welcome to another episode here at the back of the range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 187. Absolutely blown away with all the feedback that I've been receiving from last week's episode, specifically the guest. I was average at best, but my guest, Paul Simpson, arguably the greatest amateur in the state of North Carolina. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out now. As you know, as I've stated many, many times, every episode is available on the website, thebackoftherange.com. We're in Apple Podcast, we're in Spotify, and if you can leave a review, that always comes in handy. Now, if you're following on Instagram and Twitter, and why wouldn't you, you saw the big announcement from the Western Golf Association on their channels and on mine. I'll be joining forces with the fine people at the Western Golf Association at the Western Amateur later this summer. One of the biggest amateur tournaments of the year. Definitely one of the most grueling, with a stroke play portion and then a match play portion. The biggest names in golf are former Western Amateur champions. That cannot be denied. Woods, Mickelson, Nicklaus, Leonard, Curtis Strange. I mean, the list goes on and on. There will be much more content coming your way regarding the Western Amateur later this summer. Featured episodes with past champions. You're going to learn a lot about the history of this prestigious championship. For example, how far back does the Western Am go? Well, I'm glad you asked. The first Western Amateur was held in 1899 at the Glenview Club. And believe it or not, that's where the Western Am is being held again this year. Pearson Coody will be looking to make it 2 in a row as the defending champion. So again, stay tuned and subscribe. It'll definitely be a fun summer of amateur golf. Doesn't get much better than the Western. So again, thanks to the WGA for the invitation to contribute some content later this year. Lots of the best collegiate players in the country will be playing at the Western, but before we get to the summer, we still have some collegiate golf to play before heading to the national championship at Grayhawk. Later this week, Stanford hosts their home tournament, the Goodwin. Stanford lost Brandon Wu and Isaiah Salinda to the pro ranks after they won the 2019 national championship, and I guess they're still the defending champs since there wasn't a championship in 2020. And the Cardinal have reloaded with a trio of freshmen. Jake Bieber-Frankel, Carl Phillips, and this week's guest, the 2018 U.S. Junior Champion, Michael Thorbjornsen. Awesome conversation with Michael, and again, one of those guests that everyone has been asking for, including my buddy Kai in Costa Rica. We spoke a lot about his start in the game. Michael had an interesting path to Stanford. He spent some time at IMG Academy and then went back to his hometown for his senior year of high school. He's played in the Junior Ryder Cup, Junior President's Cup, even the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And again, for someone that has barely taken a couple classes in college, he's played on some of the largest stages around. So it will be very interesting to see what he, Carl, and the rest of the Stanford Cardinal accomplish in the next few years. Let's get right to this episode. Michael, welcome to the back of the range. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Good to have you here. I've thrown up on Instagram a handful of times, who do you want to hear from the most? And we hear, the usual suspects, and you and your teammate at Stanford, Mr. Phillips, are at the top of that list. Already had him as a guest on the podcast, so finally glad to have you. And you just told me before we started recording that you are actually on campus now at Stanford University after committing and the long time waiting to actually get out there. Tell me about your first few days, weeks of time spent on campus.
So far, so good. I mean, unfortunately, we won't be able to practice or use our facilities until we go through COVID protocol.
Sure.
Which, I mean, it kind of sucks, but it has to be done. But I'm just going to use these next few days to really sort out my room and get situated with classes and everything.
I mean, I don't know how Stanford operates, but I mean, is it the full like hot tub and like, how do they work out at Stanford? But this is just like standard dorm rooms or anything. I mean, there's got to be like TrackMans in every room. and full putting, putting mats and hitting nets. I mean, what's the setup, or is it just standard, college stuff?
So we're really lucky to have TrackMan set up across the whole range.
Okay.
So we don't really need a TrackMan by the spot that we're hitting at. We just log in on our phone and we can just hit balls on the range from any part and basically get all the numbers that you would normally get if you had a TrackMan right behind you.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess that kind of checks off part of our conversation of how did you decide on Stanford. I guess that's one of them. We'll get back to that one. But I wanted to, before we talk a little bit about just kind of your start in the game, and I know you're native of Wellesley, Massachusetts, and now making the jump all the way across the country to California. But before we get into some serious, profile stuff, I have to ask every time that your name comes up, if I'm speaking too quickly, I will just completely have a train wreck of pronouncing your name. So to have a little bit of fun here, can you think back to the worst pronunciation of your last name in a first tee introduction you think you've ever had?
Oh man, there are way too many of them for me to remember.
Yeah, then just pick a crappy one that really sticks out, though.
Oh, I can't even remember.
Okay.
Like I've seen everything. They've forgotten different letters. They've added their own. It's it's rather abstract.
I'm just thinking. You've played in the U.S. Open in 2019. You're a USGA champion, winning the 2018 U.S. Junior, and I'm thinking, okay, I know you've been on big stages, but at some point you have the first tee nerves, as everyone does, no matter where you are,
right?
And you're trying to get locked in, and some guy just now on the tee, Michael, and then there's a pause, and you're like, oh crap, here we go.
Yeah, I've once actually. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I've had a first introduction of my first name, and then they just stopped. They didn't even say my last name.
There's actually someone that is not the first time I've heard that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is someone that I've had as a guest that had a rough last name, and that's how it was. They just said the first name and they just stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck. So again, Wellesley, Massachusetts, growing up as a kid in Massachusetts, I'm a South Floridian, so I don't have to deal with any of that snow and terrible weather.
Right.
But I can't imagine that golf is the easiest sport for a kid to fall in love with when you're limited on the amount of time you can spend because of the weather. How did you get hooked into golf where it has now become something that's taken you to college and looks to be like something you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so my parents were very into golf even before I was born. And so I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and I lived there for, I think, 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's where I really started playing or just getting into it. We had a net in our basement, and I just go out and play golf with my mom and dad. I mean, I guess I wouldn't really play. I just sit on the golf cart, maybe hit a few here and there. But yeah, so in Massachusetts, yeah, I mean, I was just very interested in the game, and my dad was my coach at the time, or still is my coach. So we kind of looked at it as the winter time is the best time to work on fundamentals and mechanics in the swing. So when you're hitting into the net, you're just focusing on your form, not really so much of where the ball is going.
Sure.
So that's what our mindset was about the whole winter and living in Massachusetts. So in the summer and spring, that's where we'd get to see all of our work pay off, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you obviously, All-American AJGA and have, a lot of accolades on the junior level. But I guess before we really talk about the big titles and the big, spotlight events that you played in, at some point, when does it really become apparent to you and your parents that, okay, this isn't just a hobby? You're really working hard at this. There's a distinction between, some kids, they play at the junior level and they see their friends, but then you're kind of, you and, people like Carl and Akshay, and we can go down the line, but there's a different level of devotion and work at it. Do you kind of remember when that started?
I'd probably say around when I started playing tournaments, or maybe a few years after that.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure if it. Um, yeah, just I guess from the start, like my mindset about golf or like whatever I do in life is like you got to do it 100%. You can't
Sure.
like half-ass it. So like I really love golf. I still love golf, and like I'm always gonna like work hard at it. So it just happens to be something that I'm gonna do for the rest of my life, hopefully. And I'm really looking forward to that.
And it doesn't hurt that your mom played collegiate golf as well. So
It does not.
that does not. So, first time you beat your mom was how old were you?
Um, I think I was 7 or 8.
Oh man, that's just wrong.
Yeah,
She and
don't
she.
ask her.
Oh no, I'm just thinking like you're still young enough where you can kind of get spanked and knocked around for a little bit of that. So,
Yeah.
man, seven. That's a rough day for mom.
Yeah.
Nice.
She wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the day. I
Uh-huh.
remember.
Oh really? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. Well, I guess that teaches you a little bit about competition. So you go to IMG Academy down in Bradenton, and I guess there's a lot of golf academies that young juniors can go to where you really get that focus on instruction and exposure to good facilities while also getting an education. And I guess from people on the outside looking in, they may think, oh, okay, well, they just go to a school where they just play golf all day. Of course they're going to be good. They hang out at a golf course all day, and as long as they can basically read a menu at McDonald's, yeah, sure, they can function. So that is obviously not the case. Obviously, you're going to Stanford. I don't know a whole lot about that place other than the fact that you can't just show up without being able to make the grades. So
Right.
what kind of was maybe a typical week at IMG? Obviously, traveling to tournaments changes things, but what was a typical week there? Or even a typical day? Like, what was your schedule that allowed you to, get to Stanford and win on the national level? What was your day like there?
So every day had structure to it, and I mean, relatively every day during the week was about the same. So I had practice or golf or sport in the morning, and then school in the afternoon. For some sports, it's different. They have school in the morning and then practice in the afternoon.
Sure.
Um, so I think we started right around 7:30, 8 o'clock, depending on if we played the course or we're just at the facilities. And we'd have time from 8 till around 12 o'clock, I'd say. And at the beginning of those 4 hours or at the end of the 4 hours, for 1 hour we had workout. And then um, school started at around 1:15. It changed a little bit year to year,
Sure.
but around 1:15 is when school started, and then it got out at 5:45. So classes were, I only had 3 classes a day, but they were an hour and 20 minutes long each.
So it's almost like you're in a high school that is more geared towards what college is going to be like moving forward.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Instead of the all day long, and by 2 o'clock you're pretty much your brain's falling out of your head because you've been sitting in a
Yeah.
class the whole time, right? So it's very high paced, a lot of structure, not a lot of wasted time.
Exactly.
And then also, I'm guessing this is kind of similar to around the time that you're kind of getting to know this Australian kid that swings over to Florida. So you and Carl Phillips are going to be teammates at Stanford and know each other very well, playing a lot of golf together. And he went to an academy in Florida as well at Saddlebrook.
Right.
So I'm guessing that's right around the time where you realize, okay, there's a little bit of competition around. I need to kind of work at this a little bit harder.
Yeah. So Carl and I actually met when we were like 7 or 8, and we became very close right around when we were like 11, I'd say. So with Carl at Saddlebrook, only an hour away, we'd actually go and practice together the weekends before tournaments, just to get some good reps in and good competition play. So we really pushed each other, which is very good and very helpful.
Yeah, I think that's something that I definitely wanted to hit on, that it's, you need that competition. You need the people around you. I mean, I know that you and, we can go down the list of the junior class. You guys are all so competitive against each other. And I guess when you get to these big tournaments, yes, it's nice to see your friends, but it seems like you guys are all wired the same way, where you just really want to beat each other at all costs.
Right. Right.
So, all right. So you were at IMG, and one thing that I just found really interesting is you spend 3 years there, and it's very helpful with your matriculation as a amateur and a future collegiate golfer. But then you make the decision to come back home to Massachusetts for your senior season, play on the high school golf team, which I think is great. And and this was, and I'm asking you tell me, was this a kind of a team decision, you and your parents, like what prompted this, and what was the main reason that you went back?
Yeah. So, I mean, with 3 years at IMG, and then 4 years in college, I feel like if I had 4 years at IMG and then another 4 years of college, it's pretty demanding golf wise, especially since IMG is like college, but with a little bit more restrictions.
Sure.
So I felt that, I mean, going home, I had committed to college already. I was having a pretty good junior career, I'd say. And I just wanted to be back home with my friends. Like I hadn't seen them or been with them since 8th grade, and kind of just wanted to reconnect with them before we all went to college. And especially my family as well. I hadn't seen my little sister in a long time, hadn't been with my mom, and I just kind of was homesick, I feel like, at that point.
Yeah. Well, and it also, like you said, it kind of gives you a unique, well, not a unique, it just kind of gives you a standard, high school experience, as a senior, getting to do all those things that you probably missed out on. What, other than, the golf you continued with, but what was the one thing about high school in Massachusetts that you kind of enjoyed over IMG, just because they're so different?
Just how, I mean, flexible everything is. I'm not sure if that's the word to use, but just at IMG, everything is so structured that, like, you wake up, you go practice, then you come back, shower, go to school, and then your day is basically done. Whereas up home, like, I go to school, and then I'd go to the gym after, maybe hang out with some friends, um, hang out with my girlfriend, and then do some homework. It's very lenient, and um, just like the ability to do, I guess, whatever I wanted,
Right. Well, and
was
also,
kind of nice.
yeah, and it also sounds like that's kind of a smart idea, just to kind of it's almost like taking a gap year that, some
Yeah,
people do between high school and college. It sounds like you kind of took a gap year where, I mean, that it's going to ramp up when you get to Stanford. So kind of, clear the brain and rest the body just for a little bit and just be a normal kid.
exactly. Yeah, just nice refresh.
What is the one tournament? I mean, you've played Junior Ryder Cup, Junior President's Cup. I mean, you've got to basically do just about everything on the junior, the junior stage. What's the one tournament you think you're going to miss the most?
Mm.
And not just like, I wish I would have won that. I mean, everyone can say that. I'm sure there's tournaments that you didn't win that you wanted to win, but as far as like, man, I'm never going to be able to go back and do that tournament. It was so much fun.
I'd probably have to say the Junior President's Cup. That was the most fun I've had at a tournament.
Okay.
Just because I'm with all the boys. We're playing overseas at Royal Melbourne, which is just such a treat. Um, and we were hanging out with the international team. It was just very friendly, and it was just a great week overall. Like getting to meet some of the pros. Um, yeah, I was just very lucky to be able to be on that team this year.
And you're spending all this time with guys. Obviously, you want to get to their level. And, this is 2019. We're looking at, I mean, I'm just taking a little glance at this roster, and I mean, you're going to see a lot of the guys that were on the U.S. team. You're going to see a lot of them in the collegiate ranks. I mean, Preston Summerhays is going to go to Arizona State. You're going to see him. Claycom's at Alabama. Maxwell's at OSU. I mean, and then obviously you and Carl on the same team at Stanford. Then all the guys on the international side that are going to be going to college in the United States.
Yeah.
What does that sort of a team environment, I guess, what kind of opened your eyes more about that experience other than previous experiences that you've had? Because you've done, I think you've done Wyndham Cup with AJGA, but you get on this different level where there's crowds and there's opening ceremonies and you're playing.
Right.
How did that kind of change and help you moving forward as far as, getting you ready for college, getting you ready for USGA events?
No, it definitely helped a lot. I mean, I just remember the gala that we went to. I wasn't really too I don't know much about galas, but when we went there, they actually introduced all the players on the junior team in front of the actual President's Cup team.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was about to pee my pants on that stage.
So you're getting up there, and then there's just like JT and Dustin Johnson and Tiger, and so this is when Tiger was the captain of that team.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
God.
he was. Yeah, it was quite the stage. It's just really great because all the other players were all supporting each other. Usually, we're playing against each other in
Right.
tournaments. And we're always supportive, and we leave everything on the golf course. But out here, it's if you're not doing too well on the course, you have your partner and your whole team and your parents and even your country behind you supporting you, and just knowing that with golf being an individual sport, it's just nice to have someone there sometimes.
Your junior President's Cup captain was a guest on this podcast. One of my favorite episodes. I know I say that all the time, but it really was. Justin Leonard. You gotta have a good story about him. Gotta have a good story about Justin Leonard.
Let me think.
And while you're thinking, I will remind listeners that he is one of 4 players in history that have won a U.S. Amateur, an NCAA individual title, a Players Championship, been on a Walker Cup team, and won a major championship. It's one of 4. Him, Tiger, Jack, and Phil.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's one of 4.
J.O. was just such a great captain. I can't really remember anything specific.
Yep.
But he was just always there for us. He wanted what was best for us, and he always made an effort to come and see every single group out there on the course. Really talk to us, and I feel like we really got to know him on a personal level, because I feel like with someone with that status, it's hard to really get to know them too well. But he made us all feel very comfortable and really like held our hands throughout that whole week when it came to playing the course and telling us about his time on tour and all the different stories that he had.
Yeah. I remember. I just think it's funny too how he's captaining a team of these young guys that are just absolutely just bombers, and Justin Leonard was not a bomber. So
Yeah,
I'm sure he's giving you guys looks when you're just flying at 300. So one of the highlights, obviously, of your junior career is winning the 2018 U.S. Junior Amateur. Gets you into the and you beat Akshay in the finals. Anytime we get a chance to give shit to Akshay or even Carl, we try and do as much as possible. So
yeah.
but you get into the U.S. Open in 19 at of all places, it's Pebble Beach, and I think it's important that people listening, whether it's parents of juniors or juniors themselves that are listening, it's all about making these different steps and strides to higher and higher levels. I mean, I'm sure that when you were playing in your first AJG event or your first local junior tournament, you were nervous as hell. And then you get to USGA and there's another level, and then you move up the ranks, and now you're playing in your first major at a place like Pebble. You make the cut, and that's an incredible achievement. What did you kind of set in mind for yourself going into that? I mean, in all realism, you're probably not thinking I'm going to win, but how do you set a proper mindset where you're challenging yourself, but also embracing the fact that, hey, this is new for me. I don't know what I'm going to feel like when I get there.
Right. What I feel, what really helped me was the year prior, the 2018 U.S. Amateur was played at Pebble.
Yeah.
So that really helped me out that week, at the U.S. Open. Just knowing the course and just being very familiar with it helped a lot. But going into the week, I was thinking, okay, you got to make the cut. Like that's the first goal. That like obviously I want to win. Like that's for another day. But make the cut and just see what it's like playing with these guys, the best players in the world, and just compare myself to them. See where I need to improve. So I was just mostly looking at it as a learning experience, and then yeah, just happened to make the cut, which was very nice. But unfortunately, I did not have my game that week. I had finals the week prior at IMG, and I did not practice a lot before that week.
Well, okay. Of all the reasons that to not have your best week, then yeah, finals, you got to take care of that. These are all the right answers, and I'm sure when you were there, you're like, all right, Michael, let's play it cool. Let's not. Let's got to play it cool a little bit. Let's not go complete fanboy here around all these PGA Tour pros. But I'm guessing if I really pushed you hard, you could at least remember a time that was slightly embarrassing or where you let yourself be a little bit of a fan, because you're 17, 18 at the time. I mean, hell.
Yeah, I was 17. Yeah.
Right. So you got to be a little bit of a fan and just be a kid a little bit. So was there a time where you're like, all right, the hell with this, I'm going to go up and talk to someone. I know I should be working at trying to get ready for this, but look, I'm inside the ropes. I got to do something.
Right. There were definitely a few times that happened, but I'm not sure if I actually built up enough courage to go and talk to someone.
Okay.
But I remember my locker there was in the back corner, and just around the corner was Tiger's locker.
Uh-huh.
And there was one time where I'm at my locker and Tiger's in the PT area, and he's coming from PT to go to his locker, and I'm in his way, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm blocking the greatest golfer of all time. Like, I got to get out of here. So I open up a path for him. I'm like, hey Tiger, like, you got to say hi, because
you have to.
You have to. And he said hi back. Kind of had a big smile the rest of the day. But yeah, that's something very small, but it's just pretty cool because, I mean, they're all normal guys, but I was just in the locker room and I see JT's locker was just to the right of mine.
Yep. And
I saw him there when I was getting ready for one of my rounds, and it's just pretty cool seeing them.
Yeah, you have to do that. I mean, you're going to play in many more majors, but you're not going to have an experience like that ever again, where you're playing as the U.S. junior champion. So you got to do that.
Right.
What did you learn about that week as far as and I guess this is something that, for people that are watching U.S. Opens and they're looking at amateurs, whether it's, like John Pock, being the low am at this year's U.S. Open, or, whether it's Victor or Brandon Wu, and, we can go down the list, but the answer is going to be different for them than it is for you. But what was kind of like your takeaway from that? Was it like, wow, I'm way off, I'm further away than I expected? Or you're like, I can kind of hang with these guys? Like, was there anything that you really kind of took away from Pebble Beach?
Definitely after that week, or even after the first 2 days, I felt that obviously these guys are better than me right now.
Yeah.
But being able to make the cut kind of says something in itself, because if you can make cuts out on tour, I'm not going to say good enough, but that shows that you can compete and you can play. And considering I didn't have my best game that week and my swing was collapsing or whatever, just a huge confidence boost, because I'm not that close, but I'm within the same ballpark.
Right. You didn't walk away from it saying, "Oh my God, I'm not even on their planet."
Yeah.
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 Ending your junior career, I wanted to actually ask you one thing about AJGA. I know you won several titles there, All-American, but one thing I noticed or I remember is that you were, I believe, the kind of like the equivalent of what the PGA Tour has with their Player Advisory Council. You were, I think, is it called Player Advocate or Player Advisor? What was that title you had when you were at the AJGA?
Yeah, I was the player rep.
Player rep.
Yeah, I can't remember what year. I think it was my junior year there. Yeah, so we had 3 meetings throughout the year with the board of directors, which was pretty cool.
So for people that, like I said, parents that are listening or juniors that are listening, what is maybe one thing that what maybe something that you learned about junior golf during your time playing AJJ events that maybe you wish you knew when you came in, or something that you can maybe pass along to junior golfers that are trying to get to that level where they're playing in, whether it's a U.S. junior or an AJGA event, they're trying to get to college just like you did. What's maybe something that you've learned about junior golf that you can kind of pass on to kids younger than you?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things, but one that comes to mind is, I mean, obviously, each and every tournament that you play in, you got to try your best and put in maximum effort. But if you don't do too well, if you don't play too well, or you don't finish the way you want to, just remember 10 years from now, no one's going to ever remember how well you played on that round or in that tournament. It's irrelevant at that point. So you just remember that everything is a part of the path and the steps to get to where you want to be, whether it's college golf or playing on the PGA Tour. Just remember it's a marathon, and that there are going to be ups and downs, and you just gotta persevere.
Well said. That's perfect. So you're moving on to Stanford. You're there on campus right now, and obviously you mentioned about the nice practice facilities. It doesn't sound like the typical Top Golf by any means.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's any earth-shattering revelation here is that you want to someday play in the PGA Tour, and your decision to go to Stanford. I mean, tremendous program. Coach Conrad Ray. You guys are actually still the defending national champions at the time, because no championship in 2020, so you guys still have the title right now. I've talked to Brandon Wu, I've talked to Isaiah Salinda, Henry Shimp, I've talked to several people who have played at Stanford. I mean, great program, but you really got to get the grades. In fact, one of my highlight of the USAM at Bandon was seeing you in the lobby at the clubhouse doing homework for 5 hours after losing a match. I mean, you have to get the grades. How much did that factor into your decision of like, okay, do I want all of this in a college experience?
Yeah. So I mean, golf, obviously, I love it, and I want to be on the PGA Tour and play for the rest of my life. But God forbid if something happens, because you never know what could. Just the Stanford education, like Stanford is top 5, top 3, if not the best school in the nation or the world. And just having a degree to fall back on and the connections here, it's just, I can't see no other way.
Yeah, I remember Brandon and Isaiah telling me what their major was, and I wasn't even smart enough to really understand what the major. I couldn't even understand that. Now I think you're undeclared, but is there something you're leaning towards?
Right now, it's really up for grabs, but I really find economics rather interesting. I took an econ class last year, my senior year, and as well as over the summer, and I just really feel like it fits well with me.
I think Carl is undeclared too, but if he's not going into like social media marketing or something, then I mean, he should be actually teaching that class.
Yeah. We took a communications class last quarter together.
He's like, yeah, I know all this. I've been on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've been on YouTube since I was 7. Let me teach you guys something. Last time I saw you, obviously saw you at the Merrido Amateur. I think I've talked ad nauseum about that tournament. That was just the absolute frozen tundra of Dallas, Texas for a week. So we can skip on past that one. But, this another great experience is Walker Cup practice session. I mean, they're in with
Right.
basically 16 of the best guys vying for one of the 10 spots on the team. A lot of these guys already have existing collegiate relationships. I think, gosh, there must have been, I think, between, Cole Hammer and Cootie and Dawsey, and there's probably 6 guys from the Big 12. And I think you're the youngest player that was invited. This is a different step, something new. What can you really put that whole experience to? How do you classify that experience?
So those 4 days, I had an amazing time. It was pretty nerve-wracking at first.
Okay.
Just because it's kind of weird the position I was in, because let's just go back to, say, the Junior President's Cup. I'm a senior there. I've known the other guys for at least 3 years now, and
Right.
just very comfortable with everyone. But now we move on to Walker Cup practice, and I'm the youngest one there, and I've only met 2 or 3 of the other guys from junior golf.
Right.
And I don't know, I've seen all of them play well in different tournaments and know who all of them are. And I was a little nervous out there, just, I don't know, trying to get to know the guys, because they've known each other for so long. But it only took a day or two to really feel a part of the group.
Now, not that I'm rooting against you, but I'm thinking if you're the youngest one there, I'm really I don't want to say rooting against you, but I'm hoping that as you being the youngest person there, I'm hoping that you were getting a little bit of razzing from some of the older people, like
Yeah.
So like maybe the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds, like Quade Cummins and Stuart Hagestad. So please tell me there is a little bit of ribbing that they give you.
Yeah, that was also something I was afraid of. That was why I was nervous. I don't know, just playing on the course with the different matches. Like after the practice had concluded, we went out for another 9 holes to play scramble.
Yeah.
And that was, I just think back to that and how I need to hit a straight drive or else we're gonna lose the hole. Or I remember on hole 16, we had all 16 guys there on the tee box, and we moved up. It's a par 5. We moved up to the ladies' tees, and it ended up being, I think, 325 yards to the pin, like 310 yards to carry the water.
Uh-huh.
And I'm debating whether or not I want to hit driver. And I look back, so there's the red team and the blue team, and everyone's yelling at me, hit driver, hit iron. And I don't know what to do. The red team's obviously telling me to hit driver so I get in the water.
Right.
And then half of my teammates are telling me to hit driver as well. But then, no, I don't know. I ended up choosing an iron just so no one would yell at me.
Oh, man. Well, I guess you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I enjoyed just seeing that one experience, or just for that one day that I was there, I really enjoyed the fact that you guys got to get a tour of Mr. Palmer's office and just learning the history. How much did you really know about Walker Cup? I mean, I assume that it's on everyone's radar and everyone knows the history, but I'm much older than a lot of you guys, and I've just been around it a little bit longer. So, obviously you want to make the team, that goes without saying, but is it something you've kind of had your eye on, or are you still maybe just, a little too young in the game to really understand a lot about Walker Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I got invited to the practice 2 years ago, but I couldn't go because of midterms. Man, talking about
school stuff.
IMG is always IMG is really to all the people that say we don't do school at IMG, I've had some mishaps with tournaments and stuff because of it.
Man.
But anyway, I just lost track.
No, you're just saying how you were talking about just like knowing Walker Cup and just.
Yeah. So I knew about Walker Cup a few years ago, but I didn't really know all the history up until a few weeks ago when we went to Bay Hill, and that's when it really hit me that this is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of pushes me to work harder and practice harder, just because that's such an important and amazing group to be a part of, and just being able to compete again with your teammates from across the country and representing your country is something that I love doing.
Yeah. Well, getting that taste doing it the Junior Ryder Cup and Junior Presidents Cup seems like it's a natural fit. Unfortunately, with the Pac-12, you guys are kind of in kind of a holding pattern, I guess, a little bit with your collegiate golf. So I think we've spoken previously where you have a couple tournaments on the schedule, but we're recording this at the end of January, so we're not going to get into too many specifics because things change on a daily and a weekly basis right now. But what do you look forward to for the spring schedule? I mean, you guys are still the defending national champions, so how are you trying to prepare yourself for this spring?
Yeah. So, I mean, with all of us soon to be on campus, um, I mean, we're all here. We've all been so ready to compete. The guys that were on the team last year that couldn't compete are really itching to play again, as well as Carl, Jake, and I. We're incoming freshmen. This is what we've been waiting for. Um, I think we're all just really excited and pushing each other because it's coming so soon, and we want to be ready to do well.
Well, I will let you get out of here on this final question. We haven't really talked and made fun of Carl Phillips enough, so we need to we need to finish off the episode with that. And he was unable to play in the USAM at Bandon Dunes last year,
Right.
but he was there as your caddy. Now, I mean, his Wagger at the time and Mace at the time is higher than yours. I mean, obviously Carl's a very accomplished player, and he's on the bag. So you're thinking, man, Michael just has the benefit of one of the most intelligent amateurs in the country, and he's on his team. But there has to be, and you know what I'm going for here, there has to be some sort of a bonehead caddy moment that Carl made where you had to say, come on, man, it's addition. We're going to Stanford. We got to get addition and subtraction
Yeah.
figured out. So let's throw Carl under the bus. He can handle it. What give me a good time when Carl was just not on the same page.
I mean, for the first few days, he was pretty on his game, but I think he started to slack off a little bit towards the end. Yeah, I mean, it's just that's why I lost.
Here it is.
I'm kidding.
Breaking news. Finally, I get all the dirt on this podcast. I lost because of Carl. That's the headline of this episode.
Yeah, he was telling me to hit my putts harder, hit my putts softer, and then next thing you know, I have 4 3-putts racking up on the round.
That's not
so. Good. Yeah, no, but Carl was a great caddy. He helped me out a lot, trying to just calculate all the factors out there with the wind and temperature, as well as like how far the ball is going to roll out and everything. And I mean, I'm a really big field player, and just him being there with like all the analytics, just making sure everything adds up correctly, was definitely a lot of help. I mean, there was a couple times here and there, but when is there ever?
Oh yeah.
Not yeah.
There's gonna be issues. Yeah, I found that you guys seem to really pair up well together, and on paper or just as an outsider looking in, you're thinking, of course that's going to work out. But it's not just about it doesn't matter how well Carl is or how well Carl hits the ball. It's how well he communicates to you so that you're comfortable with hitting the shot. So,
right. Yeah. Fortunately, for Carl and I, what we realized during that week was Carl draws it up. He said, he knows what shot to play and where to miss it, all this. He knows everything. But sometimes he says he can't hit the shot that the shot demands. Whereas on my part, he was saying that he tells me where to hit it. I just hit it. I don't have to do any of the thinking.
Right. That's a good way to have it. Well, Michael, this was a treat. This was long awaited, but I'm glad we were able to get you on here to the back of the range. I know it's probably not the typical start to a collegiate career, not the one that you're probably dreaming of for the last few years, getting ready for Stanford. But as with everything, we're going to get through this pandemic, and you'll have a normal collegiate golf career to get to as soon as possible. I will see you down the road, my friend. Appreciate you stopping by, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Ben.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Michael Thorbjornsen for joining me on this episode here at the Back of the Range. Don't forget, leave a review in Apple Podcast. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want merch, go to the website, thebackoftherange.com. We'll see you next time here at the Back of the Range.